What I want to do is give people a blueprint. And in some cases, you can get a head start by getting some more information. And the areas that I'm interested in is how do you negotiate with a partner? The other part that's important, I can't tell you how many calls I get about people calling their partners borderline or narcissistic personalities. Well, guys, I wrote a book on it. I wrote a book on not the narcissistic personality, but how do you deal with a narcissistic personality, which is a challenge because these are folks who think that the world revolves around them. These are folks who are never wrong. These are folks who are convinced that they remember the past and you don't. And then they're easily hurt. There's a whole, in the book, there's a whole list of issues. So I wrote a book on how to get along with narcissistic personality, on negotiation, and one on healthy relationships. And the rest, you're going to have to take a look on the page and you'll see the list of them. And if anything in particular catches your fancy, please send me a request and we'll work out getting you a virtual copy of any of the things that I wrote to give you some background. And my basic belief is when you don't know about something, find out more information. And so this is an assist. So that gives you a general overlook about the kind of things that I do.
Okay, wow, that's
Thank you.
quite an exhaustive subject range there. I mean,
Thank you.
it is so great that you focus, completely in relationships. You're not all around the spectrum when it comes to counseling. This is what you've done and stayed with. Now, doing that and having that experience and being trained like you are, what do you consider a successful outcome for therapy or counseling?
Well, I'll tell you, not to be negative, but it's not the absence of problems and it's not the absence of conflict. It's what do you do when the devil knocks on your door and how do you deal with it? Notice I didn't have a gender on that. Could be a he devil, could be a she devil, But the idea being is when you come up against these problems, and now when you don't come up against the problems, how do you find a way to cherish a relationship and bring the person closer to you? That's the idea of it. And so what we want to do is identify and then take care of the issues, have the tools and because during my sessions, I give homework at the end and how you you have the techniques, the tools, the strategies to deal with stuff. And when you're not dealing with stuff, you have the mindset of how do I make my partner feel special and how do I set the tone for the relationship?
Okay. Well, I mean, along those lines, judging what successful sessions are, you do have something called the Jumpstart session.
Yes.
To see on your website, what is the Jumpstart program? How's that different than just, having counseling?
A lot of times problems are deep and they've taken a while for them to grow. What I want to do in the Jumpstart is have a double session that's more intense, and we have time to perhaps me talking to one person separately, me talking to the other person separately, bringing them together. So it gives us the luxury of some time together, and it boils down to a double session to be able to explore things in more depth. I recommend a double session for people who have long-term issues that are very deep and that are relatively comfortable with therapy so that they don't get overwhelmed. By the way, let's assume your partner is not super comfortable with therapy. I wouldn't recommend a Jumpstart for them because it may overwhelm them. But someone who has some familiarity or some elasticity that they're flexible, then the Jumpstart being a double session is a way of going a lot under the surface, a lot below the surface. So that's the purpose. Oh, and another thing to add, I do not recommend, I'm just making this up as I go along, a triple Jumpstart session. People say, well, what about half a day? Have double sessions, which ends up to be 100 minutes, close to an hour and a half, close to that, or close to 2 hours rather, is plenty to absorb. And too much, not to be too self-serving, but too much of a good thing is not a good thing. So double session is the max, is part of that, if the other conditions exist that we're talking about.
Okay. So we have the Jumpstart. We have knowledge coming from books. We've had a conversation ahead of time, but now I've decided, hey, I do need a counselor, either kind of as a last ditch effort. Hopefully this will save my marriage, or even, preventative. Everybody doesn't go through counseling just because things are terrible. Some people say, hey, I see something coming down the horizon. I want to, just head it off, or, preventive. So how do you evaluate a counselor for those needs?
Well, what you want to do is somebody who teaches you things to do. You want more than someone
Okay.
who's saying, gee, I feel badly, or allows a lot of silence to happen. What you want is somebody who's going to give you things you can actually do to cut things off, as you were saying, at the pass, to early on doing it, to learn how to listen and also learn how to present yourself, both directions. And so the more you have tools, the more you can fix what's damaged.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you have the qualifications to give somebody what I'll call the brass tacks, these things that really they can walk through. And I think that's a good way for people to kind of judge how they're moving forward. Hey, we're doing this,
Sure.
we've got these new activities. So, Dr. Marty, it's been great to speak with you, to kind of hear how things go in your practice and what somebody can expect when they decide to call or email your marriage counselor. Do you have any final words you want to say to our viewers?
I do.
Okay.
I want to thank everybody for spending the time and the energy. And one of the ways that you can tell success is people who are willing to research things,
Mhm.
people who are willing to follow up and listen. And so I compliment all the people that were willing to pay attention to this. I encourage them to look at it with a critical eye for part of that, and just appreciate you spending a little bit of your very valuable time listening some of the things that I think are super important. I want to be clear. I am not neutral about whether people should stay together. I am a marriage counselor who believes in marriage,
Mm.
and believes in marriage because the problems you have in one relationship are ones often that you not only transfer, but plus all the extra baggage that you bring with you. So when
Wow.
you talk with me, it's the idea of what do we do not to save this marriage, but to enrich it, to come back better. And quality of life has changed. A great life is having a wonderful partner. Having a partner that is just a jail sentence that is terrible is a nightmare.
Yes.
So I am privileged to be able to help people with the quality of their life as they're able to have a partner connect with them. That to me is a joy and a privilege, and appreciate the opportunity for people who want to work with me. So I want to end the conversation with a big thank you for being willing to listen to the things that I want to add on, and wish you really, no matter whether you see me or not, wish you the opportunity to fall back in love with your partner. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, Dr. Marty.
My pleasure.